Hi everybody, welcome once again to Out of the Ordinary, Into the Extraordinary. I'm Robert Taylor, coming to you on WMTV.
And I'm Pamela Hill Taylor, and as always, we bring you guests who are uplifting, enlightening, inspiring, educational, and fun.
And only one guest today. We're going to do
Two segments,
Yep, because she authored 5 different books.
all very, very interesting,
Oh,
and not
yes.
just about physical phenomena or metaphysical phenomena, but also a little bit about the material world too.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So don't go away. We'll be right back with our guest.
And we're back, everyone, with our guest, Ellen Marie Blend, author of Psychic Phenomena. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the show. So glad
Nice
you could
to be
join
here.
us.
Thank you so much.
We have quite an array of books, all very interesting information and titles. And I guess we're going to start with your first.
Okay, yes, I've been writing quite a few years now. The first book is called Visual Encounters, and that was the beginning of my realizing that I was actually getting psychic signs.
Yes.
I had a friend who was very dear to me that encouraged me to develop the talent, and she believed in me. And in time, I learned to accept the messages and the signs that I was receiving. Actually, it was quite interesting because when I realized that I actually was getting this information, I started searching for why they were coming to me symbolically.
Yes.
And the only confirmation I could get is that that is how spirits communicate.
It's very symbolically.
Yes, and in some of my research, I came across a passage that said, interpretation is the most important part. And I laughed because I had a very difficult time with the interpretation. So I would get the vision, and I would call my friend, and she would interpret the information. And that's pretty much what's in that very first book, is her teaching me how to interpret the messages that I received.
So
So it's a nice blend of talent.
So this book, Visual Encounters, might be a nice book for someone that is having visions
Absolutely.
to read and maybe
And if someone wants to
understand.
understand what
Yeah.
a psychic sees,
Yeah.
it's very informative. Hmm.
Now, your second book, was it true the second one was A Journey of Discovery? Is that in order, or am I out of
Yes,
order?
you are absolutely right. Hmm.
And A Journey of Discovery, getting in touch with the spirits, angels, and guides. And so tell us about that book.
I would say that's more on my development path. I began to recognize more messages and signs. I was very much aware that I had guides around me and spirits to help me.
Yes.
I felt very, very clearly that I had angels come to visit me that were trying to assist me with the dilemma in my life. And I just kept developing more. And the more, I wrote that book probably within 1 year. The information just kept coming, and I just kept getting experiences, and I just kept writing. There's a lot in there that has to do with completing one's karma
Yes.
and probably determining what your purpose is in life. And I actually discovered my late mother's purpose in her relationship with me in our lifetime together.
And again, this is kind of a step-by-step little guide
Yes.
for people on the same journey
That is
have
correct.
questions about the past
Right.
and their families. Because I know
Right.
this, and I said A Journey of Discovery, but it's unraveling the weave, unraveling the weave, A Journey of Discovery. And I know there's a lot about the family
Yes.
connections and the
Yes.
inner and the weave, really, of how we're all interwoven, our families before us, and our families now, and maybe our families coming in.
Yes. Hmm.
So that would be a great little, and it's easy to read. These are not big tomes of hard-to-read material. It's a
Probably
nice,
not.
no,
Usually
easy
someone
read.
can read a book within a couple of hours that I
Yeah.
have. Hmm.
So, and well-written, easy to understand, a nice little book. Now, here's one. I know we're out of order, because I don't think it was your third book,
Yeah, it's pretty close.
but it's called Not About Money.
Yes.
And has this real interesting cover with dollar signs. But it's not about money, the decline of morality in corporate America. And that seems to be real timely for what's going on right now.
Yes, and it has been going on for some years now.
It's just more in our awareness. It seems like it's getting more headlines.
Yes, it truly is. It truly is. I had a very successful career with a major corporation. It was a 100 corporation. And during my career, it was extremely rewarding. As in all careers, you do run into stumbling blocks and things don't always go well. And toward the end of my career, I happened to get stuck in a pattern where I couldn't move. And
Was that like the glass ceiling for women?
that's what they called it. Well, I ended up having an attorney, and that's what he said, too. He said, you know, I think that's the glass ceiling theory. And I said, no, I really don't think so.
You were being kind at that time.
I may
Yeah,
have
maybe-
been. I may have been. But really what did happen is I got caught up in the time of downsizing, corporate downsizing.
Oh, wasn't that called right sizing?
Yes, that's
they-
also another
they
name for
turned
it.
that and called it right sizing, but
Right,
it's still downsizing.
Right, and I had made it up to a management level, and I had an engineering career, and the corporation was having a very difficult time holding on to young engineers. They would come into the corporation, and they couldn't move up because some of us older people were holding those jobs,
And rightly so.
and they would move on to another company. And so when the corporation realized that, they decided it was time to clean house.
Yeah.
And I was probably one of the first on the list to be, they didn't call it a demotion, they said I had been reclassified.
Oh.
And I took umbrage with this, and it took me some time, but I found an attorney who was very disarming. He was such a nice gentleman. And he was able to go up against a large corporation. And when I went to see him, in just general conversation, I said to him, well, what do you think this case is worth? And he said, oh, it's really hard to say. He said, you know, things can happen along the way that can change that. I said, oh, that's okay. It's not about money anyway. And he said, it's always about money. And I said, no, it isn't. It's about principle.
Yes.
So at the end of the case and the end of the story, what was very amusing was the fact that I did receive a settlement.
Good.
And when I received my check, I took it to the bank, and he had called me during that day. My attorney had called me during that day. And I had just talked to him in the morning, so I thought, oh, that must have been from this morning. And I didn't return his call. And he called me again. He said, why didn't you call me? And I said, I thought I already talked to you. He said, no. He said, I sent you a check, but it was the wrong amount. He said, I gave you too much money.
Oh, dear.
And I said, oh. I said, I didn't notice. I just took the check, went to the bank. He said, you didn't notice? I said, no. I told you it wasn't about money. And it wasn't. It really wasn't. It was principle. I wanted to prove my point.
Yes.
And the upside of the story is after I went through all of this, several women in the corporation were then promoted. And I actually ultimately got a job at another, as a contract position at another division, and the personnel director at the time
From
had
within the
been-
same company?
within that company had moved to where I was, and he couldn't face me. When I'd meet him in the hall, his eyes would drop,
No.
and he'd see the carpeting, but he would not face me. So anyway, the whole experience allowed me to keep my head up high and to be proud of what I accomplished rather than to feel that I was being chastised. So.
Wow. And then did you feel in this whole situation that you were being guided spiritually at that time?
I don't think that I did, although I guess I like to turn every bad situation in life into a good one. And I just felt that I was doing the right thing, and I was very grateful spiritually
Yes.
that I was allowed to do this. And I had a very good mentor who mentored me on my books, other
Yes,
books,
yes.
who mentored me in this case. And she was phenomenal.
So where this falls in the lineup of what you've written, like most of it's metaphysical, but you did write this, not about money, and where does that fall in the lineup of the books that you, was it the third book, the fourth book?
I believe it was probably the third. And I probably was writing it simultaneously with another book we'll talk about. It just happened to be when it took place.
Well, you know, it's, I think it's really timely, and I think what you did was really courageous,
Yes.
and I think whether you were aware of it or not, you were led.
I think so.
On a
Well, I feel
spiritual
that way
level,
about most everything
absolutely.
in my life.
Yeah, to make that stand,
Yes.
and successfully, because it helped many other people
Yes.
afterward.
Right. Although I have been told an interesting thing about this book is that a person made a comment to me who's read my other books, and he said, "You know that you write in a different voice in this book." I think I probably had a different guide.
Absolutely, little different style, but it reads really nicely, and I can't wait to finish reading all of these. I have a little start on each
Oh,
one,
good. I hope
but
you
they're real
enjoy them.
interesting. You've done a really good job.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for this segment.
Okay.
And now don't go away, because Robert's going to be back to talk about something dear to his heart, reincarnation
Okay.
subject.
All right. Yes.
So stick with us. Robert will be back with our guest, Ellen Marie Blend, in just a moment.
Hi, we're back once again with Ellen Marie Blend, and nice to meet you, have you on the show.
Thank you, Robert.
And we're going to start out with a subject which, you know, even I've written a book on too, is Looking Back, Travels of My Soul.
Yes.
So presumably this is a book about you in your different lives.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So
Very
tell-
much about reincarnation.
How did you experience that? You know, I mean, people talk about going to a hypnotic regression session, or some people, like in childhood, will just experience those different lives.
I pretty much experienced things on my own. I started having visions like I did on the other books that I talked about, and the most phenomenal part about it was that I was getting a very strong reaction to seeing white cinder block buildings.
Huh.
And I had no explanation for it, but I would just be driving along and I would see a building like that, and my breathing would start to change, and I would get short of breath, and I'd start, it was like panting. And this happened on more than one occasion, and every time it would happen, I would try to figure out why was this happening, and the only thing I could determine is that it must have been a past life,
Yeah,
because there was
yeah.
nothing in my current life that had ever struck me that I should feel that way.
So that was a bit of a panic kind of a feel?
Yes, yeah, and I searched for a long time for a word to describe this emotion as I continually had it, and the only word I could come up with was to be aghast.
Wow.
And I had a tarot card reader that used to be a next-door neighbor, and I had seen her, and she said, "Hey, did you ever figure out what that was all about?" And I said,
Yeah.
"No." I said, "I've been struggling with this for years. I cannot draw that information. I don't know where it's from." She said, "Well, I think I know someone that can help you." And I said, "She's a channeler, and I think you should go see her. She
Yeah.
does past life readings."
Oh.
I said, "Well, fine." So I make an appointment, and I did go to see her. And I probably had a lot of questions for her, but she was really a channeler.
Yeah.
And she brought in one of my guides, pretty much introduced me to my